Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder and I leave the house and deliver an episode to you while I walk to school. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a somewhat chilly October 16th today. The sky is a patchy, cloudy, gross mess, and the wind is chilling my bones. It's in the low 50s here in suburban Chicago, which means that it's definitely jacket and sweater weather, so let that be what it will. Well, after the last 3 episodes in which I had a very orderly, stately presentation of abstract ideas as illustrated through games, I thought I would just do a little bit of chit-chatting with the fellas and ladies about games I've been playing. So, I guess in case I forget to say it at the end, I would say, what games have you been playing lately? Pop over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269. It's the middle of the month. It's a good chance to check in and say, here's what I've been playing, here's what I've been enjoying, and let me know. Along those lines, I thought it would be interesting to check in and let you know 4 new games that I have played so far this month. One of them was the featured game of the week at Toggle Gaming 2 weeks ago. It was right at the beginning of the month. It was called Periodic, a Game of the Elements. Periodic, a Game of the Elements is sort of an action selection game. You have a choice between taking some actions by moving your piece around the board or gaining currency, which you can then use to take actions to move your piece around the board. When you move your piece, you have to spend currency, and you get to put your, tokens on the spaces that you move to. The board itself is a depiction of the table of elements, the periodic table, and the goal is to put your marker on a series of elements such that you complete formulas to make chemicals. The theme is, I guess it's relevant in that the chemicals are made, but it doesn't really make any sense. I don't know why you would have a thing moving around the periodic table. It's entirely abstracted, but the idea is to get practice saying element names, I guess, and recognizing where they are on the periodic table, and then what elements are used in making what compounds, I guess. It's an interesting game. A light to medium weight, sort of right middle of the road in terms of depth. I would say on the light side in terms of complexity, as long as I've begun using that scale. It's a very pretty game. The whole thing has lots of pastel colors, although I did learn from one of the players who was colorblind that it was not very colorblind friendly. He had a lot of trouble distinguishing between a couple of the different player pieces and the related spots on the board. Overall, it was a fine game. I didn't like it enough to need to play it again, but I would certainly play it if somebody got it out and said, hey, I really want to play this, or can you show me? I would be happy to play it again, but a fine game, probably not exceptional. Next up is Double Feature. Double Feature is a party game that I played at an academic conference. Actually, the remaining 3 games here are all games I tried at this academic conference. Double Feature is, like I said, a party game. It's a film-based game. The idea, whoever the judge is flips over a card from a category that'll say something like setting, or genre, or objects. And there'll be one card on the table already. They flip over a second card, and now you have a combination. It might say setting, westerns, objects, a hammer. And then the players shout out names of films that they think fit the setting or the proposed combination of requirements in some way. When the judge hears a film reference that they think best fits those requirements, Then they award the card to the person who said the title of that film. If the judge is unhappy with all of the choices that are offered, they can flip over a third card, and now someone just has to match any two of them and say something that matches. It's a fun little party game. As with most of these kinds of games, it's a good time. It's hard to have a bad time with these games. It is more creative than your standard apples to apples or Cards Against Humanity parody, because you are the one thinking of things rather than just playing cards that you've been given. So from that perspective, it works really well. It's a lot of fun. We had a good time with it. I don't know if I think it's better than other games in its class, but it is more creative than some. I think I like Cinelink better, which is kind of a Kevin Bacon's game style thing where you're supposed to think of films or directors. I think that one's a bit more fun, but this was a good time. Would happily play again. So that's double feature. The third game I want to talk about is Tofu Kingdom. Tofu Kingdom is a light little memory and social deduction game. In the game, there are 8 roles. One person is the, suitor. One person is the princess. And the rest of the people are other characters from the kingdom. At the beginning of the game, the suitor closes their eyes, and the rest of the characters all reveal to each other who they are, and then try to remember who the other people are. Each character has a specific requirement of what they can or can't do. Some characters may lie or be truthful. Other characters must be truthful. Other characters must lie. There's one character who's not in the game. And then once everyone's revealed and then hidden their cards again, the prince asks everyone a question once, and then one person a question a second time. In that process, the prince is supposed to try to figure out who's the princess, which one of the characters is the princess. If they figure it out, they get some stuff. If they get it wrong, the people who are sort of related to the character that was wrong get the points. It's a decently fun, sort of quick little social game. I did not enjoy it as much as other social deduction games of a slightly heavier weight, like The Resistance, nor as much as a lighter bluffing game like Skull. The art was cute, but I think the challenge of having to remember where everyone is sitting really makes Tofu Kingdom difficult. You have a few seconds to look at everyone's cards, and then you just have to remember off the top of your head which people are holding which card. So it's difficult unless you're taking notes, and we never took notes. So that's Tofu Kingdom. The last game I want to talk about today is The Thing: Infection at Outpost 51. This is a slightly larger scale social deduction game. Usually takes between an hour and a half. It's set in theme around the movie The Thing, and it does a good job evoking the experience of that movie. Each player is a character from the film, and you're trapped in the outpost. At least one of the characters is an infected thing, and it could be 2 or as many as 3 when you play with a big group. We were playing with 8. And your goal is to try to figure out which people are the thing and burn them up if you can, or test their blood to figure out if they're the thing or not. And the goal would be, if you, at the end of the game, there's a helicopter that rescues everybody, and humans try to get on the helicopter. If a thing manages to get on the helicopter, the things win. If no things get on the helicopter, the humans win. This was a fun game. We had a good time. It reminded me a bit of The Resistance and a little bit of Battlestar Galactica, and then it had this element of putting cards in for a mission, and did the mission fail or not, and trying to figure out who the villains are, and so on and so on. from that perspective, it was pretty fun. The theme works really well. It did feel like being in the movie The Thing in a pretty significant way, so I loved that part of it. And just overall, it worked really well. I had a good time playing it. Would happily play again. In the top half of social deduction games I've played, I'm not sure that I like it more than the Resistance. It's got a lot of extra fluff that I don't think you need. But then again, I feel like the Resistance is almost a perfect social deduction game, especially when you add in the cards that give you extra clues. So it's hard for me to displace that. But The Thing is incredibly thematic and is built in a great way that fosters the kind of paranoia that makes these games really good. My one complaint about it is the win condition. At the end of the game, the way it works is you win if you're infected and you don't and you get on the helicopter, or if you're not, or if another infected gets on the helicopter. Those conditions are fine with me. If you're not infected and you keep all of the infected off the helicopter, you win. That's fine too. But here's the part I did not like. At the end of our game, there were 2 or 3 things. We need 2 of them for sure. There's 4 spots on the helicopter, and we had 5 people that we thought were not things. One of them could have been a thing. So here's the problem. The game, if you're a human and you get left behind, but if you're that 5th player, say we have 5 people who are not infected, and that 5th player has to get left behind because we can only take 4 in the helicopter, they're counted as winning. And I would suggest that they shouldn't. I think it would make far more sense if, in order to win, you have to get on the helicopter. Because the game, part of what makes the social deduction game interesting is when it forces players to act as though they are infected or to fight. If the game does not give you any kind of penalty for voluntarily staying off the helicopter, it makes that last sequence a lot less intense, because that 5th player, they don't have any motivation to argue to be on the helicopter. They can just like, yeah, I'll stay off the helicopter. And I think that was the one flaw in the game. Other than that, the pieces were well created, the character cards were nice. Overall, a delightful experience, and I really enjoyed The Thing Outpost at 51. Well, I hope that you found this discussion of the games I've played for the first time recently interesting and effective, and I hope that you have gotten to play some new games. Please do tell us about them over at Board Game Geek Guild 3269. And I look forward to hearing about them from you. And until next time, I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.